All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. It's 2:02 p.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. To my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier, Commissioner Carolina Mejia, and Commissioner Gary Edwards. Commissioner Klaus will be joining us. She's on Zoom. Oh, she's online. Very good. Commissioner Klaus attending through Zoom. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We have a couple items. We're here till potentially 4:30, although my expectation is we will not need that entire block of time for the agenda items. But first up is LOTT, State of the Utility, kind of an annual update. We have Executive Director Matt Kennelly with us. This is informational, and I'll turn it straight to.
Yes, well, I'm going to turn it straight over to our guest.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to come by and give you an update on what we're doing at LOTT Clean Water Alliance, as we try to do every year. And I structured the presentation such that it's a little bit more high level at first, just a little bit about LOTT, and then get into more details about things that are happening this year. Just gonna answer that. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Hope you share.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is there a PowerPoint, or is this the?
If you go to the double arrows,
Looks like it might be the PDF.
this will go to the full screen.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, so just jumping right in. Okay, so LOTT stands for Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County. LOTT was actually formed in 1976, and the idea was, rather than one treatment plant being built in each of the partner jurisdictions, they teamed up and built a treatment plant in they used Olympia. And so the flow would come to Olympia from the 3 cities, and then each of the cities would pay the city of Olympia. But it was under this LOTT, Clean Water Alliance agreement. The city of Olympia employees came over to LOTT as an organization in 2005. And there was a big interlocal agreement signed about 5 years before that really set that in motion. So the LOTT that you see today is about 25 years old in its current form. We have one elected official from each of the partner jurisdictions. So Commissioner Menser has served in the vice president role this last year and will hold elections in February. The officers are located here on the screen. We meet monthly, second Wednesday of the month, and our mission is to preserve and protect public health and the environment by cleaning and restoring water resources for our communities. And LOTT is a bit distinct. It's unique in the sense that it was formed as a 501c3 back in 1976. So the public entity status that we have is really, through the partner government. So we operate in a public way. And failure is not an option. So when you have all that wastewater coming down to us 24/7, we need to provide that high public service approach to keep everything running, to keep it funded. We're highly regulated. We're at the bottom of Puget Sound. And so there's a lot that goes with that. So not only are we regulated with the state and federal, but we also have ratepayers and the partner jurisdictions, the board. So those 3 groups essentially kind of drive what we do. Our service area has about 124,000 people. 68% of that service area you see is on sewer. The rest are on septic. The ratepayers are actually through the cities. So here in the county, if you have any residents that are connected, those would be served through the city. So they get a city bill, and then the LOTT charge kind of goes through that. We don't bill ourselves. And then the regulatory requirements that we operate under are fairly complex, but essentially they flow from the EPA. So you have Department of Ecology passing forward that EPA requirement from the Clean Water Act to treat wastewater. And so we have a treatment discharge requirements for nitrogen and oxygen demand, things like that. But we also have a series of monitoring and reporting requirements that we have to meet as well. EPA also has something called CMOM, which basically is a requirement that the utility is funded, that we have the appropriate maintenance, asset management plans, things like that. And we do our planning a bit differently than some other utilities. Some of the utilities might do a 20-year plan, build a treatment plant, and then grow into it. What we do, and from our start, and this is how we're set up under ecology, is we do these annual plans. So we submit capacity reports, how much inflow and infiltration is coming into the pipeline, all these reports. So there's a lot of time spent in planning. But the advantage of that is that you build a plant, you build an upgrade as like that just-in-time approach where you take advantage of the latest technology. And that's been successful for us. Growth projections change and you decide when's the right time to build something.
Before you go too far, on your last slide where you had the map,
Yeah.
did I hear you say that only 68% of people in those colored areas are on sewer?
Correct.
So 32% of our urban areas are on septic.
Correct.
And those colored areas, those represent the municipalities and UGAs of the 3 cities?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? So if someone who's in the UGA wanted to connect to sewer and they had the funding availability, because I imagine it's very expensive to do, they could connect themselves to that, even though they're...
Right, so it would be whatever that city would provide that service, because the cities are responsible for the collection system. So that pipeline that they would connect to would be one of the cities, let's just say Lacey. So they would pay those fees to connect to Lacey and ultimately to LOTT, and then the rates would be billed by Lacey in that example.
They usually all have policies around extension of services outside of their incorporated areas, which may be different from one jurisdiction to the next, I would imagine.
Yeah, so when a lot was formed, so the idea is that the cities, in coordination with the county and the urban growth area, that's how growth is managed, just at that level, whereas LOTT's just that wholesale treatment provider. That's our approach.
And how would a decision get made to extend LOTT to a new development in a UGA? Like, who would make that decision? The city, the developer would say, I want to pay more and provide that service because it'll make my house more marketable. And I ask because I live in Olympia, UGA, I'm on LOTT sewer, but the city has no plans to annex my neighborhood in any time in the future. So somebody decided at the time that my subdivision was created.
They're development regulations, right?
Does Olympia require
Yeah,
that?
LOTT has no part in that. It would be a city of Olympia, that, depending on when that was built. If
But
that was
doesn't the
built in
county
UGA.
control I mean, there's a joint plan, but the county does the permitting for the UGA.
Then it would have been through that, yeah.
When was
You're like, this is not my job.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa,
No,
whoa,
but
whoa, whoa.
it's a good to clarify it, because it is a
Because
common, yeah.
It shows the landscape of why you have what you have, is what I'm trying to get at. Like here you've got a neighborhood, you've got neighborhoods in the city that aren't on sewer. Then you've got neighborhoods that are in the UGA that are on sewer and ones that aren't. And
Some of it's historic.
It's historic
And like,
development.
and
it's
yeah,
been
and
2007.
there's places within a city boundary that may be way up a hill.
Yeah, historic, but
and
mine was in
it's really
2007.
expensive to get the infrastructure up there, so, they may give them the option to put a septic in, or they may have in the 70s, but they wouldn't now.
But it's not a rule right now that all UGA development is sewered. It's okay to propose projects that are on septic in UGA, and I think that's right. But anyway, I'll
Yeah,
talk
I
to
don't know
our
the
staff.
answer to that, but, I'd like to know, so I'll follow up.
And so when you say, when it's the final T, Thurston County, those Thurston County unincorporated residents that are part of the LOTT system are solely within the UGAs of those 3 cities.
Yes.
Sweet, thank you.
And so what we do at LOTT, we get 1 check per month from each of the cities, and it says the number of residential units times the LOTT rate that the board sets, and that's how we're funded. So we actually would need to contact even the cities and find out more information. The cities are responsible for keeping all that data.
And your utility is only on the collection side.
Correct. Even really on the collection, when it combines, when two cities' collection systems combine, that's when we take over. So we've had more like the bigger lines. So let's just say the city of Olympia and city of Tumwater combine, we take over that pipeline, and then we might have a big pump station. We only have 3 big pump stations that pump to 1 or 2 of our facilities.
And prior to that, the collection systems are managed by the cities.
Correct.
And, I mean, you're probably gonna get there, but, so I don't wanna steal your
Yeah.
thunder, but in terms of why Thurston County is as involved in this, is that we probably have fewer customers, you know, if you, on a chart, but there were other things like the county had other involvements in LOTT, like there were plans for treatment, like reclaimed water, and I mean, we're modifying those plans in a way that maybe phasing some of that out, but like originally, in terms of why the board is set up in this 4-part structure with Thurston County as a co-equal partner, is really about kind of there were regional elements of what LOTT was planning to do that wouldn't have involved the county even more than it is today.
Right, and I haven't found anything in the historical records to really explain all that detail, but when I've asked about it, is that the county is a major player in that decision-making as a whole in a region, and as the cities expand or annex areas, you know, that's in the UGA, and just all that overlap. Department of Health is involved because it's a sanitary component, reclaimed water, those type of things, yeah.
You know,
That was
LOTT
the
owns
original
properties
thought.
in the county.
Say
LOTT
what?
owns properties in the county,
LOTT owns properties in the county now.
yeah,
Yeah.
that were potentially, you know, thought of as being part of a future expansion.
Right.
May or may not happen, but it still, county has that dog in the fight, so to speak.
Sure. So just to give you kind of a virtual tour, when you think about wastewater treatment at LOTT, and for those of you that haven't been by, I would love to
I've
give you
toured
a
it and it's
tour. Have
awesome.
you? Okay.
It is so awesome. Yeah, with the engineers and
Okay.
dude, I love it.
Okay, good. I'm happy to hear that. Well, when you've been there, you see just what people think of when they think of wastewater treatment. You see big equipment, you see process buildings, you see big pumps, we pump a lot of flow coming through there. You see a brown river with bubbles coming through it. You see the water start to get clean again, and ultimately, it is a clean product. And how we do that is at our main treatment plant, at our Bioland treatment plant. It's 13 million gallons per day on average. So that's average throughout the year. Right now, we're probably flowing somewhere around 16, 17 million gallons per day. But what 13 million gallons per day is a football field. If you built a building on a football field and made it 4 stories tall and you filled the entire thing with raw sewage, every day that's what comes down to LOTT, this plant. And it would hurt you in the environment. That's what we make clean again. And we do that through a series of complex processes. We have the highest level of treatment on Puget Sound, and we just went through a major treatment plant upgrade, and we now have some of the best treatment in the whole country because of that. And it makes sense. We're right down here at the bottom of Puget Sound. We've been regulated this way for 30 years, but we're really proud of the high level of treatment that we do. So as evidenced by that, we've won some awards year after year. The Treatment Process Award is meeting permit. This is from this organization called NACWA, of which we also won an Environmental Achievement Award that we'll accept next week at a conference. And that was for the big plant upgrade that we did. Often we're asked to give tours, whether or not it's through state officials or other things. There's a time recently where the state was interested in asking LOTT, how does LOTT do it? There's a lot of interest in having the other treatment plants on Puget Sound do nutrient removal. That's what we do. We remove nitrogen at a very high level. So there's a lot of efforts from ecology to have the other 52 treatment plants on Puget Sound do that as well. So we, pulled into that questioning, how did you do it? It takes investment and it takes time. So we get an opportunity to share quite a bit. And when you think about wastewater treatment, the graphic I like to show is to kind of down here in the corner, it originated with cost of service. So purely just treat the water, to the regulations, do it at the lowest cost. And that's really the core of what we do. But where things have expanded out now in the realm of many other utilities is about public health, and into environmental protection, into education. We have a wet science center. We also recover resources. So just doing more as a wastewater utility is where treatment plants have evolved. It's kind of fun to dig out an old photo of what the treatment plant looked back in 1957. A lot different than it is today. So how we use renewable resources is biogas, that's one. So the methane coming off the treatment process, we capture 100% of that biogas. And then we use that to create heat and energy. So about 15% of our plant power we create in our engine generator. That's the green that you see here, middle right. We produce heat for the process. We heat our buildings. We provide heat to the Hands-On Children's Museum next door. It's part of the heat loop. We use 100% of our biosolids, and that's part of a King County program that we've been part of for quite a while. It's a soil amendment that's applied on fallow wheat fields, and that adds that nitrogen and phosphorus to the soil. And that's a requirement that we dispose of those biosolids and to use them in a reusable way. We've been part of this program for a while. And there's a lot of talk right now about biosolids in the future. It's something we're tracking closely. And ultimately, LOTT needs to be responsible for that end product. So that biosolids is the cellular material that's broken down from all the treatment microbes that we grow primarily. And then reclaimed water. All of our water is not turned into reclaimed water, but 2 million gallons per day at our remote facility in Lacey, as well as another 1.5 million gallons per day at our Bud Inlet treatment plant is produced reclaimed water. So that's drop for drop offset of what you need for potable water. So the Tumwater Golf Course gets 600,000 gallons per day in the summer. So that photo in the upper left is the tank that we built to store 1 million gallons for that instantaneous use at the golf course. And then the city of Tumwater came back and built a park on top of it. So we collaborated with them. So we try to do that with our projects. We try to add community amenities where we can. And then we have our education program. Thousands of people have come through our wet science center. One class from every one of the LOTT partner jurisdictions comes through here, whether it's not 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. They all bring their classes through. We remove barriers to that access. So if we need to provide a bus driver or rent buses, we do that. We integrate with their science curriculum, really try to connect with the schools as much as possible. It's been pretty successful.
Just on that, when we were at the conference last year, it was pretty cool because we're in this panel discussion, all these high-level treatment executives from all over the country, and they were it was a panel discussion, but it was kind of an open, it was almost like a collective, people were just talking back and forth, and they had the microphone, and somebody's like, people were talking about all the challenges and all the things, and I'm leading up to this story, but, somebody's basically like, it'd be really cool if there was this thing where you could have, educate, and they described wet, basically. And I'm just hitting Matt, cool. Matt, you got to tell these guys that we're done.
And I was like, Ty, you take the mic.
Yeah, so I actually took the mic on that one and described this because it's here are all these high-level people brainstorming, what would be this perfect model for the education that's needed and stuff, and it was they were just describing the wet center 100%. Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
so
it's been
shovel
really
that information
successful.
so they could look at the website. And
yeah, and it's been interesting. We've actually, I think it's the efforts with STEM and also many other things in our education program, but we're seeing more female operators apply. Back 20 years ago, we weren't getting as many applicants, and so now we're seeing more of that. So it's not solely the reason, of course, but I think it helps towards that STEM focus for a variety of kids.
It's an incredible career too. I mean, if I talk to kids that don't know what they're gonna do, treatment plants.
High demand
Yes.
job, for sure.
Always
we
have a
can't
job.
find enough, yeah. And then, so just thinking about then wastewater treatment as it's evolved, I'd offer what the utility of tomorrow looks like, and it's spaces that LOTT is moving into. So this kind of public service facing piece. So you need to have for the core treatment process, you need to have the public health focus. But public service is an area that you've grown into recently at the request of the partners. So that's, I'll show you some examples of community support in a minute, but more community support for connections that are made, septic to sewer connections, for example, and also on the climate front. So on the community support, we offer connection fee rebates for folks converting from septic to sewer. And those are initiatives usually led by the cities, but just as regional approach of water quality, LOTT offers a 50% rebate. So the way that works is just the cities just pay LOTT 50% less. It's a pretty simple program to administer. Low-income housing is another regional initiative that we've also participated in with 50% rebate.
The 50% rebate.
So just not on the monthly rates, just on the connection fee, the one-time connection fee charge.
Because we've calculated that, like, you know, you wouldn't have had those people like on as ratepayers. And so you can sort of figure out how long it takes to just basically repay yourself for that advance, and then it advances the connections, and it's, I can't remember the window, but it's like 10 years or something, 8 years or something.
Right, those people wouldn't have connected without these incentives, and so they just are paying into the system. It's like an internal loan process that we run.
Yeah.
But the barrier to connect from septic to sewer can be $40,000 plus just in connection fees, not from LOTT. LOTT is a $7,000 piece of that, but the cities and all the fees that takes. And so if you can cut that in half, people may decide to do that instead of, let's say, replacing their septic tank for $20,000 or $30,000. Then sanitation resources, so that's hygiene trailers, showers, toilets, porta potties, pumping out RVs, all in support of water quality. Wastewater epidemiology is a fun one because there's all this, has been talk about COVID testing and trends. And the trends definitely follow the COVID testing and wastewater, but this is a forefront that, you know, RSV, the flu, and other things, it's coming where we just collect the samples, provide them to the state, and the state analyzes everything from there. They need appropriate labs to be able to handle these type of viruses, but we already collect the samples.
Can you back that up? So you're saying that within the samples that you're collecting from the effluent or whatever, the biosolids that are coming through, you're testing for diseases and reporting those out, kind of this community has these diseases.
Correct, it's the influent wastewater.
Okay.
That's tested.
Influent.
So, people shed viruses sooner sometimes than they show symptoms. Now, when you take it on a grand scale, you just see a big trend. You're like, okay, this community connected to this sewer shed is, you know, you start to see the COVID trends ticking up, and it could inform the Thurston County Public Health, the state public health saying, okay, something's coming, or at least to validate.
Do you have like a little ticker? Like
Yeah, I'll send you some things because it's really cool. There's some trends. They test the latest variant, so they know what the variant is. I mean, it's because what they do is they take that sample and they send it in a lab, and then they grow it, and they see how many times they need to replicate it in order to get to a certain threshold. So if you have a lot of it in a wastewater sample, to replicate it to that threshold is an easy jump. If you have a lower amount, they have to replicate it, say, a certain number of times. So based on that change, they can tell you how strong the COVID is in wastewater.
Wow.
So
How quickly are those things determined?
I actually think they can determine in less than a day, from my understanding. Yeah. Now,
There's a
they have to
zombie
aggregate all the
Yeah.
data, right? They're just looking at trends, but it's a
Yeah.
leading indicator when they want to use it that way. But you could use it then for flu, RSV. And as long as you stay at a large scale, you know, when you get closer and closer to people's houses, that starts to get infringe on rights, right? But you take it on bigger scales, you can actually get some pretty
What
interesting.
about other things like other chemicals, drug use? You know, like heroin use is rampant. Like you can kind of go at community scale, or are there?
That's how it used to be. So they used to test influent wastewater at different cities to see how many of those illegal drugs are in different cities.
Yeah.
And they would just report out that data. This is more detailed and more trending and more of a public health focus. But it's at a federal level. I mean, this is part of a giant program. Yeah.
Huh.
This is definitely one of the futures of wastewater.
Yeah.
can I follow up on kind of that, right? As we're seeing an overdose just crisis in not just Thurston County, but just across. You know, I'm wondering kind of, it used to be done, if kind of it's gonna come back to kind of start tracking and seeing like, okay, it's, you know, it's rising in this specific area, and then maybe as a local body, like having that data, we can, okay, we need to start ramping up measures or prevention or education, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, the driver to that would be like Thurston County Public Health. If they said, we want to test wastewater for this, this, and this, like I said, we already collect samples. So if we would just wait for that request, because those folks they know what to do with the data, and they've got the systems, they know what they're looking for, what they want to see. LOTT in itself is not running all these tests to do it, but we have the samples to provide and know the research. So I love further collaboration there.
We just paid for a lab, right?
Yeah. You're pretty cool. So, and then coalition for other water quality projects, whether or not it's the Deschutes estuary restoration or support of what's happening in Puget Sound with permitting. So we're part of those efforts. And then the regional climate efforts involving and led now by Thurston County. To show you where we're at with that, with climate elements, is here's a graph of our carbon emissions over time. So 2015 is the baseline year. And you don't see a big drop off from 2015 to 2022. But when you take into account the growth of our community since that time, it's actually a 23% reduction, 28% that we've been able to make since that time. And primarily how we've gotten there was energy use. We spent a lot on power. We're the largest energy power user in Thurston County, I'm told. And anytime we can reduce power from pumping all of that wastewater to aerating it, that's a huge advantage. But what is exciting, I think, when I look at this graph, when you see this 89% electricity, and that may vary, but let's just say around 90%, is so much effort right now is going to converting into electricity, right? Natural gas used to electricity. Well, as the grid starts to go greener over time, LOTT follows that trend with reducing our carbon footprint. So if we look at 90% being electric, and we know that there's efforts underway, PSE, to make that at some point a green energy source, then what we can do at LOTT is focus on that other 10%. And that's what we're doing right now, is we're doing a climate action assessment to determine what can be done. Some of it is just a byproduct of treating wastewater. There's some nitrous oxide that's sent off once we treat to a high level, but we use some natural gas. We use methanol, which we're converting off of. There's just different sources that we could focus. So that's going to be the future for us, is that 10%. And then as well as trying to reduce energy on all of our projects, which we recently did on our big upgrade, our biological process improvements. We saved 2.5 million kilowatt hours per year. This was a $30 million upgrade. That's the thing that really jumped us up in our level of treatment. And we ended up getting a $1.1 million grant from PSE for that, which will be able to be reinvested in our efforts. But what 2.5 million kilowatt hours per year is, and I like, because I can just grab this from EPA website, is about 19,000 trees or 3 million vehicle miles driven. So significant reduction in our power use from big upgrades. And what we did there was just take advantage of new equipment. There's really some great technology out there. We reconfigured the plant, made it a lot more efficient. And then when we upgrade buildings, we have to replace this big flat roof in the middle of our treatment plant. So why not take advantage of the tax credits that happen when you replace a roof and you put solar? This happens on people's houses quite a bit. And so we said, let's put a big solar array. It's our first chance to really jump into the solar component piece and add that to that renewables list of items I mentioned before. So that's about 200,000 kilowatt hours per year. And if you're like me, I'm like, okay, what does that mean, 200,000 kilowatt hours per year? So the equivalent to that is 5,600 electric vehicle miles. We don't drive 5,600 vehicle miles a year on our fleet, which is pretty local. So that definitely covers all of our fleet and then some. Certainly powers that building.
That's not including haulers that go to Eastern Washington.
That's not, but I suppose it would help.
You gotta
offset
pose in
that.
there.
But
Come on,
yeah,
that's
there
cheating.
is, as part of that carbon footprint, we do take into account that we do have to haul those biosolids over to Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
Once it gets there, it's actually a carbon sink because of, just because it's being put in agricultural fields and it's carbon sequestration. But yeah, eventually, maybe those trucks would be electric. Yeah, or some other way to get them there, or some other way to use biosolids locally, or something. Yeah. We have quite a bit of infrastructure. So the main is at our Bud Inlet Treatment Plant, but we also have our satellite Martin Way reclaimed water plant in Lacey. We have recharge basins. We have 3 major pump stations, 22 miles of those big interceptor sewer lines where we talked about the city lines combining. We have reclaimed water and that 1 million gallon storage tank in Tumwater I mentioned. So our budget is driven primarily by those capital projects, and what we laid out recently, we did this master planning project through 2050. And because we're getting a high level of treatment, it's a lot more cost effective to make our existing infrastructure more efficient. And that's what we've proven we can do. The original model from the 90s, when this was all developed, was let's build satellite treatment plants a lot of places and produce reclaimed water. And that's why we have our 1 satellite plant, our Martin Way 1 in Lacey. And that's been working really well, but you basically kind of build this plant off in a distance and it's relying on that area. But now we can take advantage of our main treatment plant and expand reclaimed water as those needs develop, but also treat water to a really high level, and that preserves capacity. So because of our recent upgrade, we're able to almost double our capacity from a nitrogen perspective. So you don't have the environmental impacts, the public impact, anything related to building new plants. And we have support of the ecology and the Squaxin Island tribe with that approach as well. So the budget is shown here for the current biennium, and you can see the majority of it is those capital projects and the debt service associated with it. So that's a bit different than our partners in a way and how everybody has to operate each of their business lines and jurisdictions. So we spent a lot of time on planning for capital projects. They take years running. So that big upgrade we did was 6 years by the time we planned it, designed it, built it. And we had been talking about it for about 10 years before that, waiting for the right time. Okay, so because of our capital project, the way that we fund that is through connection fees when we have to build new connections, but we also have monthly rates. And so take that resident that you have in Thurston County that's connected, let's say, to Lacey. And so Lacey's billing that person for their wastewater rate. That's the LOTT charge plus that city's charge. So you can see here that each of the cities are actually below the average. This is a rate comparison we do every 2 years when we do our budget. So when you think about us in our community, having some of the best treatment in the nation, providing that for below the regional average is a good value for the community. And how that's happened over time is policymakers like yourself have just said, okay, we're gonna be steady. We're gonna have rate adjustments that keep up with inflation. And then internally, staff, we plan to operate under that and just keep up. And that's why we do a lot of planning to move projects around and try to make sure we're building the right things over time. Now, inflation has been quite high in recent years. And so what we do is we take on some more debt and kind of ride that out in order to, pay that off over time. So it's just kind of a big steady ship we're trying to run at LOTT. And I'll end on just a thank you to county staff and for you all for the collaboration that we've done through a partner jurisdiction, but also just a lot of organizational direct collaboration with septic to sewer conversions, the emissions inventory stuff that our staff coordinate with. Wendy Stephenson is our environmental project manager here that does all of that. And she's here at Jocelyn Bonilla as our communications specialist, helping with lots of things like presentations like this. Affordable housing, Deschutes Estuary, sea level rise, and then Rob and I have been coordinating on strategic planning. So we're doing this strategic planning effort over the next 6 years and reaching out to the partners and asking, what do you need from LOTT over the next 6 years? And that'll help inform our board and what plan next 6 years. So lots of collaboration as it's necessary. So thank you. Hit a lot of different things, and thanks for asking questions along the way, but I certainly can answer anything that you have.
Commissioner Edwards?
Matt, there's a new thing with salmon that's something to do with tires that break down.
Yes.
Are you able to recover any of that toxic material? I can't tell you the name of
Right, 6-PPD. It's called 6-PPD, and there's a lot of focus right now at the state level to test it. We are connected, it's just such it's an emerging thing
Yes,
that we're
yeah.
tracking. And as I understand, some of the treatment that's done on stormwater ponds, like when stormwater runs off, it doesn't go right into the water source, it goes into some treatment, that is effectively removing it. So although we haven't focused on that issue, and we will, as this develops, I would surmise to say that if that is effective, just in that smaller stormwater treatment, that all the things that we do in our treatment probably significantly starts to reduce that, but we will test for that at some point.
Do you have generators down there that if the power goes out completely in an area that give you plenty enough juice to run your operation for days on end?
We do. We have about 5 major generators. Where we site them is by the pumps primarily. We need to keep water moving.
Sure.
And so what we're going to add is a generator, keep our biological process just kind of on standby until power comes back. We have 2 power feeds that come into the facility, and then we have generators at each of the major pump areas. Yeah, we test those regularly.
Can you describe, like, a couple of times in my time on the board, there has been, equipment failure or an incident where, kind of you guys had to go into emergency management mode? I'm trying to remember, like a switch
Yeah.
station at one point, or?
Yeah,
Kinda
well, a
describe
few
how-
things. So
Yeah, just one example of that, to show
right.
kind of how you guys are built for that.
So, a funny one is a Mylar balloon floated into the PSC substation with those 2 feeds that feeds us and took it
Chinese.
out. And so that was out, and our generators kicked on, and we rode it out until PSC was able to get us power back. So we have plans in place. It often happens sometimes, so at one of our pump stations, our Martin Way pump station, when the power goes out, the generator is supposed to kick on. And so when the generator doesn't kick on, and these things happen, right? That's why we have electricians on call. They get the call and they come out and have to quickly get things running again, or, sewage is spilling, and it hasn't happened that way yet. But things like that happen where the contingency plan is put into place, but it's certainly not without concern and worry, like, oh, I'm glad that we had that electrician on call, I'm glad that we were able to have generators. So we have things in place, but you want to have failure on failure. You can't protect everything, but we go by something called the Orange Book as a guide. It's from Ecology on the levels of redundancy that you need in each of the different categories.
There's when we use the term 24/7 operation when we're doing our budget. There's 24/7 and there's 24/7. You guys are at a different level,
Yeah. Yeah, when we have to do construction projects that need to take out an area of the plant that is normally flowing with wastewater, we literally have to do it at like 3 a.m, shut down so the water's still coming in, we just store it up. When at 3 a.m, the water is at its lowest for the most part, and then we do the upgrade. We have
Unless
about
there's a
4
party in
hours.
Thurston County, right?
So there's 13 million gallons per day that comes in that you treat,
Right.
and then how much goes out?
Almost 13 million. I mean, our reclaimed water plant in the summer is shaving off about 1.5 of that.
So all of it that goes out is not reclaimed water. Some of it that goes out is a different class.
Correct. So.
What's the breakdown of that?
Right, so the 13 million coming in, let's say, what would that be? 11.5 of clean water going out, best treatment on Puget Sound, but clean water going out
Into the sound.
into the
And
sound.
that's classified as,
That's called effluent. That's cleaned water. That's called tertiary treated effluent.
okay.
So that meets the permit standard for what needs to be discharged into Bud Inlet.
And that's
But
completely acceptable, that's just a stage below?
That's one stage, so the stage above that is called Class A reclaimed water.
Okay.
And that goes through an extra level of filtration and it gets chlorine. So the way that we disinfect the water going out to Bud Inlet is with UV light. And that way you don't have to chlorinate it and dechlorinate and you get chlorinated byproducts and all. So all that water gets disinfected in a different way. But then when it goes to reclaimed water, that 1.5, it goes through extra sand filters and gets a little bit of chlorine because that's going to go into pipes. You don't want anything to grow in the pipes.
And that's what goes to the Tumwater Golf Course.
Right.
Are there any other plans for using reclaimed water in your system for other things in our communities? Like in the future? Right, because like if you have a golf course and you're spraying the golf course with water, that community gets additional water credits and things like that, right?
Right. So the way that the city of Lacey and Olympia teamed up, and there's an infiltration area in Lacey called Woodland Creek, and the reclaimed water goes there, infiltrates into the ground, and they get credit from ecology to pump out potable water nearby. It's not the same water, it just keeps the Woodland Creek flowing so they can pull out more groundwater.
Okay.
In the future, like just fast forward a generation or so, and the way you see this in other communities is that level of treatment from reclaimed water just gets higher and higher as the demand for water increases,
Yeah.
all the way to potable.
Yeah.
There are places around the country that are making potable water, that are blending it into pipes, that are injecting into the aquifer, and those places are in warmer areas like Texas and
All of Central
California.
Florida, we learned. All of
Florida.
Central Florida is using reclaimed water
Yeah.
for drinking, for
Yeah.
everything.
So that's the trend, and usually water crises take people there. Luckily, we're in our region but at some point in the future, right, you kind of see it on the horizon. And so what we're going to be doing at LOTT, we're talking to Ecology, Department of Health, is exploring a demonstration about doing like the maximum water treatment, send it through reverse osmosis, turn it into potable. LOTT wouldn't be a potable water provider, but if we can demonstrate it, then the community can determine if that's a level of treatment that maybe the
We've
cities
been
want to do or
so
something.
cautious with, our approach about this. And
Like what about industrial uses? Water's expensive to just take out of a tap.
Yep. Yep.
Like industrial water, like working with the port or something like that.
So the port takes regular reclaimed water for their irrigation, but if for some reason they had
Just for their plants.
just for their, if other places wanted designer water that would be on top of that and needed a higher level of treatment, then that's certainly possible, and then you can tailor it in. That's a better way to use water and reuse it than continue to pump groundwater and.
So there
and
could
save
be
us
like
a lot.
industrial uses on the port facility tied into lots extra water that they're creating.
Right.
It could potentially be even beyond that, as each jurisdiction looks at new development. If there is a water purveyor that takes the reclaimed water and is able to have purple pipe and move it through the community, new construction can have redundant systems
Yeah.
so that you're using.
It's a commodity. that
Ultimately,
we're-
you want to close the loop, right? You don't want to be pumping into the sound anything that you
Yeah.
can keep and reuse. So the more you take out of it and reuse and reuse and reuse,
Right.
you're better off.
And there's a lot of benefit because we're actually capped from a permit perspective on the amount of nitrogen we discharge.
Yeah.
So the more water is reused, with less we discharge, then we save capacity. So we have more capacity for growth in the community that connects. So
Is there purple pipe leaving LOTT going anywhere other than,
there's purple pipe from the main Bud Inlet treatment plant. There's purple pipe that goes up all the way down to the golf course to that Tumwater tank.
so like where the old brewery is, those areas are eligible to tap into reclaimed water?
Right, and that would be through the city of Tumwater. So the way the agreements work and way, LOTT's set up is that we provide that reclaimed water to Tumwater. And if Tumwater wanted to connect up, let's say the craft district that's there or something, they wanted to use that water, then they would have an agreement to charge them for the water. Usually like
So
City
there's
of
a
Olympia
brewery
has-
in Portland that was making beer out of reclaimed water.
Yep.
I think it's awesome.
Well, it's like, what I was saying, like, we've been so careful in this region about it, but I was shocked when I went to the conference and saw
Yeah.
other jurisdictions are they've blown way past like
Yeah.
our.
Beer was
caution.
actually, in medieval times, beer was made to treat water.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to drink the water. You'd have to make it beer to make it safe.
And a lot of it is the, the community, that social, the yuck factor. And a lot of times people do those brewing demonstrations just to prove it and
Yeah.
have fun with it. And the tagline I like to say is, water should be judged by its quality and not its history. I mean, that's right. We're all
I
drinking
feel the
water
same
from
way.
something. What's that?
I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the future.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a larger conversation at times, because you are reclaiming the water, but if you have no way or some partner to actually convey it to the customer. So if they want to put in, redundant systems, have purple pipe to use it for additional flushing, et cetera, so you can reduce your demand on the potable water. It's the conveyance piece is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think you didn't,
It's got to be used for more than just like watering plants.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's
We
so
have
much opportunity.
about where you have purple pipe, and then you gave the Tumwater example, other
Oh,
places.
yeah, so there's the pipeline out to, through the valley there to Tumwater. And it kind of branches off. There's some at Heritage Park for the state there. The city of Olympia takes care of that. And then our Martin Way facility in Lacey on Martin Way, there's a pipeline that kind of goes past that Woodron Creek facility that I mentioned with the infiltration, and then out to our Hawks Prairie ponds, where I showed a photo of it, but that's where we do groundwater infiltration. So it's kind of just like a big trunk line in Lacey and one from downtown Olympia to Tumwater.
How about the golf course out there?
The golf
Capital
course.
City. You think Capital
Don't they
City?
have one out?
The Tumwater one does.
Yeah, but out to, in the area of Hawks Prairie, don't they have a golf course out there as well? In that new development?
Yeah, at
Jubilee.
Jubilee.
Yeah,
Jubilee.
so here's an interesting thing. So, yeah, so these satellite plants that were envisioned, they take 2 million gallons kind of off the system. They kind of they just pull a base load and produce reclaimed water. And they're kind of an island. And so where Lacey's at is they actually want more flow so we can upgrade that plant so we can produce more reclaimed water. But because at night, that flow dips down to, let's say, 500,000 gallons per day, and then it kind of goes like this. You really can't run the plant. You have to base load it as much as you can because it's a different treatment style. And so the situation Lacey's in is they want as much reclaimed water as they can, but there's not enough wastewater being produced that's sent to that facility, for example. And so actually Tumwater is in a better situation because the pipeline is from our main treatment plant, just kind of the location. They can actually get more water more easily. So that's actually why centralizing makes a little bit more sense than starting to build these satellite plants. So some of that is dynamics of where things are. And I know Lacey is looking at reclaimed water as their future to offset potable supply for sure.
Yeah. The reclaimed water and then the biosolids, they need to be like considered commodities. And we gotta figure that out because we're not gonna stop producing that stuff.
Right.
From a branding perspective, being in Olympia, not having It's the Water or something like that in your stuff, you're missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the water. It's,
Yeah.
tie it to Olympia beer, tie it to the history,
Yeah.
I
I think if we created that demonstration project with, with beer,
I was like the beer,
potable.
if you
Yeah.
did the beer thing and it's in
Yeah,
the water.
there's-
tying into the crafting district. Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities.
Because it's clear no one's enforcing that trademark anymore.
Well, we looked into it at the
Everybody uses
VCV.
it.
We really looked into figuring out how we could use that as a regional marketing plan, and there was nobody out there that said, like, the research was done
everyone's
by the
done it.
attorneys, and they're like, nope, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
You
Public
just
domain.
can't use the Olympia beer sign without their permission, which I think the city of
Okay.
Olympia has.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. And it's actually exciting for me that you're excited about it because we are actively working with the regulators. Nobody's done this yet in Washington State. Like in Oregon, they've done it. Idaho's done it. California's done it. So many different states have kind of gone to this demonstration thing, but our regulation, And ecology and Department of Health are interested in saying, oh, if LOTT was interested in this, you know, just to kind of explore this. So many other regions are driven to this mindset by a crisis, and the community conversation that it takes to get along, it's a long one. You have to do it right, and you have to show that it's safe in whatever way you use the water. You don't have to drink it, but it could be for industrial uses. So it'd be exciting in our region that we could be that forward thinking. So when the crisis comes later, we're already ready, and not, because when a crisis comes, the regulators are the ones putting their foot on the brakes saying, whoa, you're going too fast. We want to make sure it's safe. You just do all that work up front. So yeah, it's exciting. Excited to hear that.
Anything else? Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you for your time today.
Lottie here. It's in the water.
Where was I?
Make
Was
sure
it
it's an IPA, non-hazy for Commissioner Mensah.
Yes, non-hazy.
Yeah.
Order's fine.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
You.
Okay, can I check in with Commissioner Klaus? I know we had the photo thing.
Yeah, I just got here, so I'm coming in now.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll just go to Commissioner items if there's any. Commissioner Mejia.
I actually would like to request an executive session right now, and this has to do with a personnel matter and the, hiring of a, county manager.
Okay. We have, I got my phone because there's a section I have to reference, I believe, to call closed session.
Yep.
Maria?
It is,
Maria available?
she is, and
Grab Maria
she's
for us.
gonna
Let's
be-
take till 3 and we're in the restroom or whatever, grab Maria and then grab our subsection and we'll do the closed session at 3.
Perfect.
welcome back. We are picking up, we just finished item 1 on this work session agenda. At this point, we are going to move into an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1G to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee related to the county manager position. This will take approximately,
10 minutes, 5 minutes.
let's say,
Let's say
15
15.
minutes. Commissioner's action may follow, but we will, just, we will make an announcement.
I'll do that.
All right, and here comes Commissioner Klaus, so are we square with the recording then? Okay, we're back out of executive session, No formal commissioner action is following that. We're back to our regular agenda. Item 2 is commissioner items. I brought forward I shared with my seatmates I'm sharing with my seatmates a communication that I made to public health staff that I would like to make sure that the McAllister Springs study that public health did in 1990 and any subsequent follow-up work is made known to the contractor that's developing the Pattison Lake IVAM, which is their work plan for how they're going to treat the issues that Pattison Lake faces, just so that those I's are dotted and T's are crossed. This was information that came at public comment from Mr. Trowbridge. I had a chance to read the stuff that he dropped off this morning, and so just letting my seatmates know that I'm hoping that if there's an issue there, and it can be addressed in the IVAM. And Commissioner Mejia is bringing up the fact that there was a 3 Lakes study, kind of an updated study done by recently that might bear on that. So that'd be more information that we can provide to the folks. I don't remember the firm. Have they selected a firm?
No, it's just going out for RFP.
Okay, just going out for RFP, so good timing. Okay, any other commissioner items we want to address? Commissioner Edwards needs to leave.
Mr. Trowbridge will be here meeting with me at 1 o'clock on Friday.
Okay.
And I'm asking Assistant County Manager Gilder to join me so that he can convey what you said, because I can't repeat all that stuff.
Is there a Burfoot Park, given that you're traveling on Friday? We had a follow-up on Burfoot Park. Is that still happening?
Yes, I'll be joining via Zoom.
Okay, so I do have a conflict at that time, but maybe I can split my time between the two.
I will get if I have an email address, I'll just copy Mr. Trowbridge on what I sent, so he's dialed into what I said, and he can respond.
Unless you're here Friday and you want to join us instead of Rob, but I also
What time
know
is that?
You guys sometimes don't, you're like oil and water sometimes.
I'm trying to fix that, but I have another meeting. I have 2 other meetings at 1 o'clock, so I won't be able to join.
Does he have any idea how wrong he got it? Does he?
Mr. Klaus, did you have something?
Um,
I'm sorry, I thought I saw your hand.
yeah, you did, but I forgot what I was gonna say.
Anybody else? Good to go. Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.